How can I rid myself of the anxiety that I feel about my ex-partner and the nervousness that I feel when I see them? Well, sometimes it's a lot easier to break the patterns when you recognize that this is something that you want to move from. So having the awareness that this is about moving on is a big step. Hi, this is Joe Brito. I am a psychotherapist, hypnotist, and coach that has worked with clients over the last 30 years in the areas of mental health and addiction. And when I've had couples who have struggled with a recent breakup, like I had that with a client just last week, when she started to recognize that she needed to move beyond the pain of her current relationship with a partner who was still stuck in the middle of his addiction process, she had to come to grips that for the benefit of her son, she had to make some changes. Now, as it pertains to something like that, and as it pertains to her, we started to look at all the emotions that had to come into play when a person is struggling with a relationship breakup. And for many people, they go through the stages of grief. Now, the stages of grief start with denial, like, this isn't happening. Everything's going to work out. I think this is just a phase. To the next one, which is anger. Anger is the emotional response to perceived injustice. So it's really, this isn't fair. I can't imagine. Like, why is this happening to me? And then the next part is around bargaining. Bargaining is if I just work hard enough and just focus on my career, or if I just focus on going to the gym, or if I just focus on my son, then things will be okay. The next one is sadness and depression. And yes, it's a normal part of grief. Grief is a normal human emotion. You can't really use a therapeutic technique to accelerate it or make it go away faster. However, having said that, and the last one, by the way, is around acceptance. Now, return back to the original point, which is there's not a specific technique that can necessarily accelerate grief. However, a lot of the techniques that I use are around taking the anxiety out of the grief process, meaning the grief process cannot be accelerated, but the anxiety that this person felt as it pertains to their ex is what we focused on. And what we used is a technique around breaking cycles and patterns in the brain, meaning she had a triggered response that would always loop within her brain. Every time she saw her partner, it would get worse and worse and never better. So we use a technique to break those loops and break those cycles and create a new outcome, a preferred outcome. And as we loop these new outcomes and create a new response, and as she did some future pacing, as to seeing that outcome and reacting better, and better for her is that she was calm, confident, and in control. Calm, confident, and in control, which was a much better response to how she had felt prior to that event. She was able to focus on what was most important, which is being able to be present, both emotionally and physically, to her son, and being able to co-parent much more effectively in the future. And by doing that, she was able to lessen the grips of anxiety, still having to deal with the grief and the grief process. And I'd like to say to you that grief process is linear, meaning you'll go through denial, then you'll move into anger, then you'll move into bargaining. It's not, because some people experience jumps from one emotion to the other. So moving from anger to sadness to bargaining, back to anger, back to sadness, back and forth. And I'd like to say that happens from day to week, but sometimes with some of my clients, it's been minute to minute. So if we're able to pull the anxiety out, she has much more resources available to deal with the emotions that she needs to deal with. And as a result, like I said, had much better outcomes. So I'd love the opportunity to work with you, whether your issue is getting over a bad relationship or taking out the anxiety of your grief process. I'd love that opportunity. So click the link below to find out more information on how I can work with you and help you make those lasting changes in your life. Till next time, this is Jill signing off. I wish you health, happiness, and harmony. We'll talk soon.